In the early hours of the morning and last night, violence erupted at UCLA as counter-protesters came to tear down the barricade set up by the pro-Hamas, pro-Palestine, and anti-Israel factions, resulting in some wild videos. We also have the tear down of Columbia and photos and images released by police, the chains they were using. But what's happening in Los Angeles, I think, is the most interesting thing. When the police stand by and do nothing, this is what you get. Now, the funny thing here, you've got this narrative from Democrats. You've got this narrative from Mike Johnson that these protests, they cannot be allowed. They're anti-Semitic. They must be stopped. And the message being sent to so many people is that if you are a far leftist who's firebombing federal buildings, nobody cares. If you force the president into a bunker on May 29th, 2020, and set fire to St. John's Church, they're going to call the president bunker boy and they're going to make fun of him. But if you protest Israel, well, then the boot comes down. And while that may be the narrative we're hearing for the most part, and is sort of true, I think all we really learn from this is that Congress, the establishment uniparty, wants to make these moves. You see, when the attacks are on the president, when the attacks are on federal buildings, when the attacks are on conservative Americans who support Trump, Congress does not care. But when it is an attack on Israel, Mike Johnson springs to action. Democrats spring to action. They want to pass a bill to get anti-Semitism monitors on these universities. But the reality is, if you take a look at UCLA, it is actually rather similar to what we see with many other protests, as much as many people probably don't want to admit that. The police ultimately do very little. Now, that being said, NYPD did come in and crush these encampments and these protests much more quickly than they've ever dealt with anything targeting Trump supporters. I don't necessarily think that it is that they're defending Israel, although many people want to believe that. I think it's that they hate Trump supporters. You see, when Gavin McInnes is speaking at an event in New York, the cops do nothing. In fact, the cops ended up arresting the Proud Boys because Antifa was instigating fights and the Proud Boys got into a fight. And the Proud Boys decided to speak to the police because back to blue, baby, right? Well, they went to prison for that. I think what we see from this is not so much that it's pro-Israel, although definitely when it comes to Congress and politicians and Joe Biden and all that stuff, it is. But it's mostly, you start to realize they just hate you. They hate conservatives and they hate Trump supporters. If the protests come for any other reason, because I was there at Occupy Wall Street, they made moves to arrest and pepper spray people. Yeah, it's that they hate the right. And so if the right is protesting, they will crush you and shut you down. If the right is protesting, the far left will come, crush you and shut you down. So as I see this violent riot erupt in LA, the only thing I can really say is, this stuff shouldn't be happening. It's nasty. We don't like it. But I ain't going to shed no tears for far leftists, communists, Marxists, and pro-terror and people who support terrorists. I'm not going to shed a tear. You're going to cry and whinge all day and night, be like, we're the free speech advocates to defend us. You guys physically attacked other rallies, so not interested in hearing it. Thank you. Have a nice day. What I find fascinating, though, is the police refusing to do anything. Jewish students, pro-Israel students, and every other student, non-allies they call them, are being barred from the university grounds. This is exactly what's happening. So what do you get? Well, I'll tell you. What happens is, at UCLA, if you're a non-ally, we'll pull up the story in a second, they say you can't come in. You have to support their efforts against Israel, which is basically just like join the Marxist revolution or whatever. Well, many of these students were Jewish, and they were being barred entry. There's the viral video of the guy. He's wearing a blue shirt. He has a Star of David. He has his hands up, and he's like, I'm just trying to go to my class. It's in that building. I want to enter. And they're like, no. And they just stand there with their arms linked, blocking him from entering. Videos like that emerge, and then you get the pro-Israel protesters who are like, if the cops aren't going to stop this, we will. They show up, and you get fights. So here we are from the Daily Mail. Violent clashes have erupted. And now don't get me wrong, the police did move in when this stuff starts erupting. Violent clashes have erupted at UCLA between pro-Palestinian protesters and a group of counter-demonstrators in the latest unrest to hit U.S. campuses. The trouble comes after more than 100 protesters were arrested on Tuesday night at Columbia University in New York City, where one building, Hamilton Hall, was occupied by demonstrators before police stormed the campus. The timeline. how violence erupted. It has been reported that counter-demonstrators have left the scene of a pro-Palestinian encampment following violent scenes, and we do have video, which I'll pull up in a second. Here's the timeline. At 10:45, NBC LA reported that protesters armed with Israeli flags arrived at a pro-Palestinian encampment that was set up on UCLA's campus last week. At 11 p.m., footage was taken from helicopters showing fireworks being set off and projectiles being thrown as rival protesters engaged in scuffles. By 12:30 a.m., so granted, we're talking East Coast, you're 3:30. A group of counter-protesters attempted to dismantle the pro-Palestinian encampment that had been declared unlawful by the UCLA in a ruling hours earlier. Footage shows some demonstrators took a metal barricade and ran through a crowd with it. I think we actually have footage here from Sky News of people pulling down the barricades. So let's see, here we go. 12:51. Zach Seidel, a spokesman for the Los Angeles Mayor Karen Bass, stated LAPD should be responding immediately to Chancellor Block's request for support. By 1:30 a.m., LAPD officers arrive on and appear to prepare themselves to break up the riot wearing gas masks. Around 10 minutes later, officers from LAPD and California Highway Patrol move into the demonstration and form a guard. By 2:45 a.m., so we're talking only a few hours, like not, just several hours ago, LA television station ABC reports that officers engaged with demonstrators and warned them they will be arrested. By 3:50 a.m., the same station reports the counter demonstrations have left the area. So look at these. This is wild, dude. So this is a video of the clashes erupting. This was from 7:45. It says 7:45. I'm wondering what I think they're going by local time. So this was just last night when the fighting was breaking out. People are just beating each other with sticks. Yo, this is wild. We do have some footage and some information. So Sky News reporting violent clashes are erupting. And we have this ABC Eyewitness News. This is from 3:32 a.m. Protest has continued for more than 90 minutes with no law enforcement presence as brawls escalate in the crowd. People are being beaten and kicked. Barricades are being used as weapons. Well, here we go. We got some footage here. OSIT Defender says significant clashes have erupted at the University of California. How loud are we here? They don't control the volume. I'll play that in a second. Pro-Israel counter-protesters are attempting to disassemble the pro-Hamas encampment located on campus. Police have finally arrived after over an hour of fighting. So here you can see these are counter-demonstrators tearing down the leftist encampment. Look at the barricades. I want to pause real quick. Take a look at the right side of the screen. For those that are just listening, I'll explain. They've put up wood planks. They're creating a fortification, a stockade, as it were, a fortress. This is insane. They are fortifying this place, and these counter-protesters came in because the police weren't doing anything. So we just have this footage I'll play. And this is, I mean, it looked like, I hear estimates between 100 and 200 counter-demonstrators coming in. Look at this fortification. This is insane. This is not anti-Israel. While people like Mike Johnson are coming out saying, we won't tolerate the anti-Semitism, blah, blah, blah. This is just Marxist. This is no different than BLM. There's no core ideology. It's literally, we oppose anything the system supports. That's kind of wild to see that they've built such a massive fortification with pallets, wooden boards, 2x4s. Looks like 4x2s. And we can just see in this video people tearing things down. We'll jump to the next video we have here. So this is, I believe, this is before they started actually tearing things down. You can see people are starting to pull the barricades. Or this looks like it might be a different section. I'm not sure. Actually, it might. Wow. Of course, they're using mortars as weapons. That's what they do. And then we have this video here. So it looks like there might actually just be two encampments. Is that what it is? Or what is this? People are pulling barricades. No, I don't think the counter-protesters had barricades or anything set up. So it is the same location. It's just being torn down. We've got this tweet from Matt Binder. He posted this video. We'll play this video first. Teresa Watanabe. 200-plus pro-Israel counter-protesters are attacking the UCLA pro-Palestinian encampment They started beating on one student and stomped another under a plywood board, as per LA Times. Where is UCLA security? So here's video footage. See if we can make it bigger. Showing these people coming up, and the people with the sticks. These are the counter protesters. Wow, this is getting crazy. Moving to tear down these barricades. Then we have Matt Binder with this tweet. Will the mainstream media talk about these actual outside agitators physically beating down pro-Palestinian students at UCLA? Will the Biden administration put out a statement condemning these acts of violence? Will any one of these agitators face a single consequence? Cry me a river, you communist hypocrite. Matt, I remember when Aaron Danielson was shot and killed in the streets of Portland. I remember when BLM in Provo, Utah shot a driver unprovoked in the arm. I remember when anti-censorship protesters rallied in D.C. minding their own business and far-left aligned groups came and started beating them. I remember when protesters who were upset over mask mandates were outside a hospital and Antifa aligned groups showed up and started beating them. I was there at Berkeley when elderly women out to support free speech and Donald Trump had M80s thrown at them by far-left extremists who used makeshift explosives as well as M80s and other explosives to target and attack people. I talked to a guy there who brought a knife and said, I'm gonna come at these people. And I asked him, I'm like, they're just standing in the park talking. They didn't do anything to you. And he's like, they're fascists. And I was like, really? You think they're fascists? And he was like, yeah. And I'm like, what are they doing right now? What are they doing? And he's like, well, they were here to rally and support fascism. And I said, do you think these people here are pro-gun? And he's like, yeah. And I'm like, you think these people here think everyone should have guns? Like, yeah. And I was like, do you think fascists want everyone to have guns? And he's like, no. And I'm like, so are these people fascists? And he like paused for a second, confused. He brought a weapon. He had a knife on him. He showed me a knife. These people are intending to commit harm. They have committed harm. And every single time the right has a march or a rally, the far left shows up and physically attacks them. And you think I'm going to cry now and complain? You're joking. Okay, I'll tell you what should happen. The police should come in and stop the violence whenever it happens. The police shouldn't be allowing these Gaza UCLA. Take a look at this from Zero Hedge. Pro-Gaza, UCLA activists refuse entry to non-allied students. Hey, here's a video. They're not letting people into campus. There you go. You have to pledge your support for them. You have to align with their ideology. Otherwise, they won't even let you in. And you get a wristband. Look at this. Wristbands to prove that you support their communist ideology. The funny thing is I hear that some people bought their own wristbands and walked in, started filming, and then they lost their mind. If you aren't an ally, you don't get to attend your classes. Cry me a river, Matt. No, okay? So let's talk about this. Violent agitators from outside the university set up a pro-Gaza camp. They started barring students entry. Where were you, Matt, to say, why are they barring students entry? Now counter-protesters show up because of this, start tearing things down and fights break out. The only thing I can say is police should have never allowed these people to do this in the first place. No one should have come and started attacking anybody else. They never should. But I'm not going to sit here and defend the far left because they are the ones who instigated the violence. The violence at UCLA started from them. I'm not going to condone people showing up with poles or whatever and attacking people. But I'll tell you this. The violence started by the pro-Palestine group, barring people entry, physically removing people, surrounding people, grabbing people, robbing people. All of that's on camera. Take a look at this. From the Post-Millennial. Columbia University says unaffiliated persons are leading campus occupation as NYPD make arrests. We knew this. Same thing is true for UCLA. Let me see if I have this this video here. So what's a photo? Here we go. Deputy Commissioner Morning Joe. This is funny. Morning Joe, actually. You see what happens when you go after Israel? The MSNBC comes out and defends you. Or defends the police. Deputy Commissioner Tariq Shepard shows the chains used to secure Hamilton Hall at Columbia University. This is not what students bring to school. This is what professionals bring to campuses and universities?
Entering Hamilton Hall. This is not what students bring to school. Okay, this is what professionals bring to campuses and universities. These are heavy industrial chains that were locked with bike locks, and this is what we encountered on every door inside of Hamilton Hall. And so in order for our emergency services group to enter into the building, they had to first cut through these chains, but also get rid of debris and barricaded doors that were barricaded with refrigerators, vending machines, chairs, you name it. They pushed it up against those doors to try and stop us from coming in. But our guys would not be stopped. They did a fantastic job of entering into that location and taking people into custody without incident last night. They took about 40 to 50 people into custody inside of the lobby of Hamilton Hall last night.
So I want to show you this chain. He said all of the doors had it. I'm not going to act like you have to be the most sophisticated person in the world to buy a chain and a bike lock, but these are professional activists that are doing this. College students with no worldly experience who are watching TikTok videos don't have the organizational knowledge to pull off an occupation like this. And it is a fact. We've already known this from the first arrests. Many of the people who are setting these things up are not students at these schools. These are professional communist activists and agitators who come in, instigate young people, and they use them as cannon fodder. I'll break it down for you. Here's what happens. We call them the tourists. That's what we called them during Occupy Wall Street. Because we noticed that everywhere we went, there were these activists involved in organizing. And we said, that's really weird. These people are sort of playing it off like they're working class and poor, but they sure got a lot of money to fly around the world. Yes, they were in Turkey. They were in China. They were in Brazil. Who are these people? We call them the tourists. Now, some may argue that they're actually feds instigating protests and whatever. No, I don't think so. No, I think that they're professional activists, far-left extremists, and they want one-world communist-style governance, and they have a network of fundraising and nonprofits that kind of pay their bills. And another things that are relatively more simple, like getting donated frequent flyer miles and things like that to travel around. Now, these people who, let's see, you know, I've seen them at universities in California in various protests. I've seen them marching in Turkey, okay? Because I'm on the ground covering these stories for various organizations and literally like, hey, I'm doing news, please donate, I'm going to go. And then Vice sending me to places. And then I'm like, what are you doing here? I saw you at Occupy Wall Street. Oh, they don't like it when I noticed that. We called them the tourists. So they'll go to a university and they will start agitating. Here's why they go to universities, or here's likely the reason they went to the university. Young people don't know what's going on, just see these stories and think, I want to be involved in something. The goal of this is going to be mass indoctrination. Some college kid is bored. His friends are like, you want to go down to the camp? You hear what Israel's doing? And they go, oh, yeah, sure, I guess, whatever. They don't really know what's going on. They don't really pay attention all that much. They're like, yeah, okay, it's cool. I support the protests because, you know, protest is good. Then the police come and make arrests. The goal of the tourists, as we call them, is to get college students arrested, to radicalize them. When these college kids get arrested, they're like, I don't even understand. I'm just at my university. I'm not even doing anything. There's a video at Hamilton Hall. Police have barricaded the doors because they're going to arrest everybody. And you can hear one student yell, like, it's finals. Can I just go home? And everyone's making fun of this person. The tourists want you to make fun of that person. I think of some woman yelling, it's finals. Can I just go home? Didn't realize that, you know, I'd argue what they did was a felony. Breaking into a building, smashing out the windows, barricading it, destroying all this property, and probably multiple felonies. Yeah, right, like they'll actually be charged. Look at misdemeanors. But this person is clueless. They have no idea what's going on. They don't know what they're doing. They're just like, this is what my peer group is doing. This is what we're supposed to do. They're holding up a sign saying we're on the right side of history. Clueless. Some of them have never been at a protest before in their lives. The police come in, grab them, and cuff them too tight, pull them by the cuffs as they're crying and screaming, saying, what's happening? They get put in jail. And while they're sitting in jail, the professional activist that's there with them says, aren't the cops bad? And look, online, everyone's making fun of you. Aren't the people on the right bad? You should be with us. We'll protect you. What they do is, and I'm not kidding, they get people arrested on purpose and then sing songs in jail. They'll all be sitting in lockup and they'll say, they have a bunch of young women crying, a bunch of confused young men, and they'll say, let's all sing together. And they all sing together. And they do the people's mic. If I say it, you repeat after me because it's a cult building exercise. This is the indoctrination and radicalization process of kids at these universities. Now, there is blowback. Some of these kids at these universities are pissed off because they have no idea what's going on and they can't go to their campus. But what they're trying to do is take the soft targets who are susceptible to the leftist message to convince their friends to come and hang out. It's like Burning Man. You put up a tent, you hang out in the park, there's food in the People's University, and we play make-believe. They demand snacks. We want snacks and water. That was their demand when they were like, we have demands that Columbia give us food. And they're like, you broke into a building, smashed out its windows, barricaded it, and now you're saying they give you food? And they're like, we pay for food. And it's just laughable. The reporter's like, you want to play revolutionary and then ask them for food? And they're like, well, no, we're just saying don't block food. And then someone goes, did they? And the woman's like, no, we're just saying they shouldn't. They have no real demands. They don't actually care about Israel. What they're doing is attempting to radicalize young college students who don't have any experience with what's going on. And you know, it works. That's why they do it. And here we are. Now, I don't know what's going to happen for Joe Biden in November because ain't no way he's going to be able to come out and support this. But Democrats overwhelmingly criticize Israel. Yeah, you may have the older 67-year-old MSNBC viewer who's a Democrat who supports Israel, but the tides, they are a-changin', my friends. The big news that we're seeing over the past few days, of course, is that the U.S. has invaded Gaza. And I'm not mincing words or playing any stupid games with people who are trying to lie and about what's going on. Here you can see from Central Command, the pier building off of Gaza is underway, and they plan to connect this to the shore to be secured by the IDF. And we call that a beachhead. A beachhead is a fortification on a coast where one force can deliver supplies. And Lloyd Austin told Matt Gaetz that it is probable that our troops are fired upon and return fire. Yeah, that's called invasion. We are landing on their shore and building a beachhead, and they're shooting at us. And the reports from Military Times, mortar fire has already begun. Now I wonder, how come these protesters aren't out upset about this? This is like the biggest news in this country right now. And I feel like I'm taking crazy pills. The United States is invading Gaza. Wow. 1,000 troops armed, ready and likely to return fire on Hamas as they storm the beaches. And what are the protesters saying? We want food. What do they have to demand? They could perhaps demand the U.S. back off, stop the invasion, but they're not. No, that's just, okay, sure. I don't even see any leftists on Twitter being like, don't do this. I'm like, am I the only one who noticed the U.S. just invaded Gaza? Whatever, I guess. That's just me, I suppose. I suppose in the end, we're going to see how these things develop. It's only a few hours since the clashes at UCLA, but I imagine, look, man, these far leftists are going too far with it. We'll see. Next segment is coming up at 1 p.m. on this channel. Thanks for hanging out, and I'll see you all then.